everyone, and welcome to Empowering Homeschool Conversations. My name is Peggy Ployer, and I am the founder and CEO of SPED Homeschool, as well as the host of this weekly broadcast, Empowering Homeschool Conversations. We at SPED Homeschool empower families to home educate children with learning challenges, and I encourage you to check out our website at spedhomeschool.com to learn more about the resources and support that we offer families. This month, we're starting a new month. We're going to be focusing on mental health. And that's going to be probably some pretty deep topics, I know, but this is Mental Health Awareness Month. And we really thought that since we have 5 broadcasts and 5 blogs that we can fit into May, that this is something that needs a lot of attention, especially in this day and age where depression rates and so many other things are increasingly getting worse. And how do we as parents deal with that? Even homeschool parents. Oh, yes. So I'm excited to kick this month off with my guest, Dave Carl. Welcome, Dave, and thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah. So today's broadcast is going to be focused on boosting self-confidence in students who have been bullied. And Dave has a lot to share with us. I'm going to do a little housekeeping before we get started. I see we already have a couple viewers popping on. Just know that if you are watching on our YouTube channel or on our Facebook page, you can make comments right there, and we will be able to see them, incorporate them into our discussion. And we actually got a question from a community member who wasn't able to join us live, and she said, I really want this question addressed. So she emailed it to us. So just know that if you look in our broadcast ahead and this is not a good time for you, if you listen to our podcast instead and say, oh, I have a question for that guest, email it to our office at office@spedhomeschool.com, and we will make sure that we get that question into the broadcast so that you can get the answer that you are looking for. And also, if you are watching on our Facebook in the group, just know that you have to give Facebook permission in order to publish your comment or question out of that group, or you can just pop onto the page to do that. And if you're watching on empoweredhomeschool.org, which is our webinar platform, just know you have to click into the YouTube video in order to make the comment. If you make a comment on that platform, we won't see it till after the broadcast. So we want to make sure that we get your questions. And so put those in those places, and then we will be able to see them. And you can also just share where you're watching from. I know I'm in Texas, and Dave, you're in Washington.
Washington State.
Yes. So anyways, we are talking across the miles, and thankful for technology and thankful that you are joining us. So I think that's about all I had to share for housekeeping. But Dave, I would love for our viewers to get to know you. I've just enjoyed this last 20 minutes of chatting with you before we started, and I'm looking forward to this hour. But could you please just share with us some of your background and your life journey and why you're so passionate about helping students who have been bullied?
Okay. Well, I'm just to let you know, I'm a social worker. And as a social worker, my primary focus is working with individuals on overcoming obstacles and self-confidence and things like that, so that in the future they can just have live independent and things like that. And just to this is something that's very personal to me, because it hasn't always been easy. I was born with something called spina bifida, which is has to do with the back, and because of that, I've always used a wheelchair.
Yeah,
and with growing up, I can tell you, it didn't matter. I was raised with, okay, so I use a wheelchair, big deal. I did the same thing that my siblings did. I would get outside and I would hang out, I would play games and things like that. That's how it went.
Yeah.
And my parents made sure that I could do all of these things. And I saw myself before I saw the disability, before I saw the wheelchair. And that's how it was the entire elementary school, let's say. And then what happened, the reason why I'm into helping people on overcoming bullying is because once I hit middle school, once I hit sixth grade,
oh, it's such a tough place. Yes,
drastically. And what happened is, and this is brand new because I, grew up without any problems.
Right.
And I can share my actual story. And what happened was when I was in sixth grade, I was in special education, and it was a smaller room. And I had there was one individual that I say he was the main bully. And he would tease me in the classroom, and he would just tease me about being in a wheelchair and things like that, and say things that are definitely not appropriate these days. And just find ways to really get under my skin. And he could tell that, through time, he could tell that I couldn't handle it.
Right.
And what happened is you have the main bully, but then the other students, probably 3/4 of the students in that one class, eventually started following along.
Yeah.
So I have 3/4 of the class teasing me and just really making me feel, belittling me and making me feel so embarrassed. And what would happen is they would find ways to, I would leave the classroom, and they would yell down the hall, so that everybody, so all of my peers could hear exactly what they were saying. So it was down one specific hallway, and they would yell very, very disrespectful and hurtful things, to the point where eventually I dreaded. I actually was scared to go down that one hallway that specific time of the day. Wow. It's like, okay, how do I avoid that? Because I've got to go to class. Right. There's no possible way. So what they did was, or what I ended up doing is just finding a time that I could, where there were a lot of kids, so I could avoid them.
Yeah.
Didn't always work. And then what happened is they would start, things like that would continue. And then they would also come up to me, that like probably within a foot of me, and just make a really evil laugh right in front of me, and then immediately go away. And then after that, they just continued doing things like that. And eventually what happened is I started showing symptoms at home. Yeah, and that's what happened. And that's when, what happened is my family started noticing that all of a sudden this boy who's always hanging out and enjoying things doesn't want to go to school. There's something not quite right. Yeah. And so what my parents ended up stepping in and asking me if kids were being mean. And being a 12-year-old, I don't want to talk to mom and dad. What are they going to say to me? Are they going to think that I'm not able to stick up for myself? But eventually, then I find out after letting them know, no, that wasn't the case. They actually did stick up for me. They actually did contact the school and things like that, and the appropriate people. And, so eventually they took me out of that class so that I could avoid it. Yeah. And then, but that took care of it partially. The kids still found a way to find me, it seemed like, and, still yelled things that were very difficult down the hallway. And then what happened, it's really, I think about it right now, and it's kind of sort of funny, but I remember the kids must have gotten in trouble. Because one day, one of the boys who got in trouble, who was a bully, comes up to me and he's like, "Dave, why'd you tell on us?" I'm just thinking, at the time, I think to myself, I was still really quiet, and I'm like, I don't know. But I think to myself now as an adult and as an advocate, it's like, well, why do you think?
Right.
You were pretty insulting. You really hurt me, the things. And, it's really interesting because that was 35 years ago. And what I just gave you was pretty specific. And for me
you remember it. Yes.
For me to remember something that detailed 35 years ago that's not, it shows you how long some of these things can last.
Yeah. Well, you brought up that word evil. And I know one of our viewers even said cruel. She said, "I was autistic and bullied in middle school, placed in a class with behavioral problems. My classmates were cruel to me." That unfortunately, that is, I mean, it is good to label bullying as that. It is evil and it is cruel. And it's not just kids having fun. It goes beyond that. And like you said, it has lasting impressions. But I know your story is you've turned that lasting impression around. And I'd love for you just to share with us a little bit before we start getting into questions, just how your work is an extension of that compassion and passionate desire to help others who have been bullied.
Well, what I do right now, I actually use I use this stuff as my education. Even though I already have a social work degree, but I use my life experience as my education.
Oh, that's good.
And what I do is I work in a middle school, and I work with kids with various disabilities who are in special education. But when I work with them, I don't work in a specific class. What they do is that the kids that I work with they're in the mainstream classes.
Oh, yeah.
And I've worked with them on whatever IEP goals they have. And what I'm always working with the kids on is self-confidence.
Yes.
Working with them on just because somebody says something, it doesn't mean it's true. Okay?
That's good. Yeah.
Making sure that they can ask questions, making sure that they see themselves before they see their, whatever, reason why they have an IEP.
Right.
And eventually what I've noticed is that, maybe at the beginning of middle school, the other kids can kind of see, and they are being followed by me. So obviously they know there's something going on.
Yeah.
And that's how it was in 6th grade. But now they're just one of the other kids. And that's one thing that I've noticed is that, they're talking, they're hanging out, they've got their group of friends and things like that. And so that's what I try to do. So
yeah, that's awesome. And you have a couple of resources too that we can touch on right now. I know you'll share some more information, but you've written a book, and you also have a blog that with some great information. So we'll be sharing those resources at the end. And again, if you have questions about bullying, we're going to focus on the self-confidence, kind of turning bullying around, and what you can do as a parent to help your student. But I like, as we're kind of diving into this topic, to talk about the impact of bullying on individuals, families, and even on entire communities. And just so we can become aware of it's not just a child in a classroom. It's more than that, isn't it?
Oh, it's definitely more than that. And when I talk to people about what you're asking, what I like to do is I like to break it down based on a person's age. Okay, so let's start with elementary school, because elementary school bullying is not going to be the same as high school. Okay, so when it comes to elementary school, the signs, okay, maybe a child might be bullied on the playground or, even in the classroom.
Right.
It'll be specific things like maybe has to do with a disability, maybe it's ethnicity, maybe it's even whether or not they're a boy or a girl. And, things like that. And, what happens? Okay, maybe some just teasing, verbal teasing, maybe some physical, maybe punching or something like that. Maybe excluding. What they'll do is they'll get away from the person and pretend, or they'll whisper. Just sometimes to egg them on, and sometimes they're just being excluded.
Right.
And it's for that specific reason. So how do parents, how do parents find out? How do parents see the signs? And when it comes to a young age, when it comes to elementary school, it's change in behavior at home. It could be grades. It could be maybe, if it gets to the point, maybe all of a sudden the boy or girl, the child, is coming home with bruises on the arm. Or, because they get punched on the playground or something like that, and it just doesn't stop. Maybe so they get scared to go into school. Maybe they're having nightmares, or maybe even wetting the bed more. Maybe they're, having temper tantrums a lot more than they used to.
Yeah.
Just general things, because it really hurts a person, hurts a child psychologically.
Yeah. And I want to point out too, I mean, you're coming from the public school background, and a lot of our parents are homeschoolers, but you can be in a homeschool co-op. You can go out for a field trip. This can happen at church. There are lots of other places that you can take your kids where bullying can happen. And so I want you to think like group scenario type things where maybe you've seen some of this happen. And a lot of times in those non-classroom places, we even dismiss it more.
Yeah, what we do is when we, like you said, to dismiss them, what we do is we say it's boys being boys. It's girls being girls. It's kids being kids. But we need to step in further, because we don't know how the child is feeling.
Right.
It's not just simple, a one-time thing. It really can help or hurt a person psychologically.
Right.
So that's how it is with elementary school. When you get into middle school, that's when you start self-confidence and, how you look is really important.
Right. Well, they're trying to create their own identity. I've heard it said that, it's that age group is when they start to disconnect and have their identity with their family, and they start to create their own identity. And that's where then they're most vulnerable, is in that middle school age.
Yes, they're very vulnerable. Yes, they're trying to get their own identity. And if anybody here who's listening has middle school student children, it's not easy.
No,
it's not easy to raise them, but you also have to remember it's not easy to be them. Okay, it's not easy to be a 14, 13, 12-year-old who's all of a sudden going through changes, and attitude is changing, and their feelings. So so they get into a situation like I did, where when I was bullied, that was 6th grade, which is middle school, and so these kids are getting bullied in school, and it might be for the same reason. It might be because they are, again, race, ethnicity, gender, disability, anything like that. But then so what do they do? Who do they talk to? They're already mad at the kids. Maybe they're mad at themselves. Maybe they're mad at mom and dad because they're always mad at mom and dad. Again, being a teenager.
That's true.
So how do they do that? How do they overcome these things? And this is where it is extremely important for parents to be aware. It's so important for parents to be parents in a situation like this. Okay. So, understand that, okay, so you're noticing some changes in your child. Again, it could be things like attitude, lack of interest, lack of, maybe they start dropping out of sports even, things they love to do, or skipping.
That's a good point, because they're in a flux of change anyways, but it's those things that they really love to do that all of a sudden start dropping off. I think that is an easy one, much easier than many other indicators.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. So once the parent starts noticing this change in behavior or just lifestyle as a teenager, how do they step in? Okay.
Yeah, that's
what
a
I
very
want
good
to,
question.
and this is so important, is let them know that you are there for them. Okay. Don't just let it. Okay. Don't just think to yourself, and definitely do not tell them it's a phase or don't worry, it'll pass. These kids are, it'll pass. It's not going to pass for them necessarily. It can stick. It may only last for a month, but it doesn't mean that inside it's not going to last for just a month.
Right.
Again, I said this is 35 years ago. So everybody is different. So just being there for them, letting them know that you're there to be to be an ear. You need to be an ear. You need to be there to listen to them.
Yeah.
It might be today or it might be a year from now. You don't know.
Right.
They don't even know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So understanding that, just to be there for them and that you're advocating for them.
Yes.
Advocate for your child.
Yeah.
Let the teachers know. Let the principal know. Let the superintendent know. And one thing that I always tell people is when they email, everything's email these days. So when you email things, it's very easy for somebody to say, "Oh, I didn't get that email." But what you need to do is when you email somebody, if they need that email, don't just send them a new email. Forward the original email that you sent. Because when you forward it, it actually shows the original email with the date, the time, everything like that. So it proves that you started making an attempt on this specific date. So,
yeah, and that's good within a co-op situation or anything else. One thing I want to point out, Dave, you were talking, your pre-bullying and then when the bullying started too in your own life. It sounded like your family was pretty close-knit, that you had a really good relationship with your parents. And I really want to point that out because I think, you having that close relationship, your parents knew you well, and you also trusted them greatly too. And we see, unfortunately, a lot of families that are not that close anymore. And it's really hard when something like this comes about to try to initiate that advocacy as a parent when your child doesn't trust you and you don't have that close relationship. So in those young years, if you're just listening and saying, I want information for later, know that establishing that relationship, what Dave was talking about with his family and knowing the baseline of what your child is when they're happy and healthy and pursuing life, so that when things change.
Yeah. And one thing I can say to that is if you are listening today and you're if you didn't have that communication when they were in elementary school or whatever, whenever, it doesn't mean you can't try.
Right. Now, exactly.
Start that communication as a middle schooler. as a high schooler. Let
Yes.
them know, even though things weren't as close in elementary school, I'm here right now when it's difficult. This is something new to you, and it's new to me.
Yeah.
So let's
that's
work
good.
on it.
Yeah. Yeah. You become the coach, the cheerleader, what they need, because you can't step into that situation all the time. But you can be their best advocate. And
yeah. And when, it's important for me to let you know when a person, say you're homeschooling, okay, so they're out of the bullying situation, continue your homeschooling now, but still continue to work with them, help them, just maybe getting them into activities, maybe instead of, if you want, maybe they want to draw a picture, don't just give them a coloring book. Draw with them, sit with them, talk with them, laugh with them, just talk. It gives them just the support. It gives them a reminder,
right,
that somebody's there for them. Somebody's there with them. Somebody's there to protect them. Just keeping those things in mind it's very important to think for anybody, especially somebody who's still growing up, still developing.
Yes, because they don't always know what to ask for or what they need. And sometimes those activities will bring out things that they hadn't even processed.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it just comes up to light and you are there. And so I love that suggestion, Dave, because we don't always know and or what to say, but those circumstances tend to bring about really good conversations when we just sit in them and listen and watch. So I love that.
And you had asked about community.
Yes.
Well, one thing, when I was working on my bachelor's degree, I worked a lot in summer camps, and I would see, and I would work at the camps, and they'd be overnight camps for like 2 months. I unfortunately saw a lot of bullying. Unfortunately, and then they would tag team against a certain child for whatever difference they saw. So it was really important for me to number one, tell the kids, to stop, but then also to have that time where I can prove, I can talk, I can hang out with the child that's being bullied. Let's go shoot hoops. I love playing basketball. I play wheelchair basketball. So let's go shoot hoops for a little while. Let's work on that. And next thing I know, the kid who keeps on being told that they can't do something is making more baskets than I am. And so let's you're definitely proving you've proven me wrong. Let's go prove them wrong now, because you have more talent. You have more things in your mind than you think. Okay, so let's, just working with them, and I hardly know them. I'm not their parent, but I'm still working with them on getting them out of that situation of being bullied, and in the meantime, working with them on self-confidence. And that's part of community. And then another part of community is just, people, society needs to address bullying more than they do. It's, people need to have more, things set in place if they see bullying, instead of just letting it pass by. Okay, that's your job. No, it's not. It's your job. Unfortunately, that happens. Everybody puts the job of stopping bullying in somebody else's hands. If you see it, work on it. Just don't deal with it, but work on it. And work with, the appropriate people, but you can still continue as the adults. Continue to help that child.
Yeah, exactly. And you were focusing on self-confidence, and that a lot of times, like, you were talking about with your own personal experience, that we get such a narrow vision of ourselves when all we can think about, and I know we talked about this before the broadcast, you replay it in your mind when you leave the situation too. And that becomes the lie that then you carry with you, and getting out of that lie and seeing things like you said, going out to shoot hoops, you're replacing that with other things and the truths that are really there. But it can be, I think we as parents sometimes can easily forget that our children can't see what they're good at because they're so focused on what they have been told they can't do, or they're bad at, or this is who you are. And that it does it. It takes a lot of people to speak against a lie to make that truth believable again. And so I love that you bring that out about community. It is a lot of people, mom and dad say it. I'm not as likely to believe it, if my 10 peers are saying something different. We don't logically think about that, and your kids don't either. But, what if, somebody, another adult that, has no agenda like you, Dave, with all these kids that you work with, you're more believable because, you're just saying it to say it, and it's true. And they can see that you're seeing it and calling it out. And surrounding your kids with other people that can speak that truth about them is a great way to rebuild that self-confidence. I love it.
Yeah.
So yes, that community, the individual, and the family. You've kind of addressed all of that. But, bullying doesn't look the same in every situation, does it?
Oh, it absolutely doesn't. Every type of bullying is going to be situation by situation. You might have a child who's bullied in like in the bathroom, or you might have a child who's bullied on going up and down the stairs in the school. Somewhere where there aren't a lot of adults. Sometimes where there aren't a lot of people, witnesses, I guess you could say. Sometimes. It'll be so different for each person in each situation. You get that in in elementary school. It might be the playground. It might be even if it is on the playground, maybe it's behind the corner where teachers can't see,
right?
Where the paraeducators can't see. So that's where the bullying can take place. Other times it is more in the open. Again, it's different for everybody.
Right.
Get into middle school, it's the same thing. But and another thing that I talked to you before about, and this makes it so difficult, is the cyberbullying.
Right.
And
yes.
That's where it becomes, that's where it can become so individualized. Because that's when they are really targeting that specific individual right then and there. And so they aren't just, teasing a certain individual just like they tease everybody else. No, they're teasing them for that specific reason.
Right.
And it just happens to be using technology.
Which unfortunately gets exposed to a lot more people. And so it becomes like almost a mob type of scenario with bullying, and yes, that, and we've seen it destroy mental health in so many people, kids all the way to adults.
Oh yeah. And then you hit high school, and a lot of times we think of elementary school and middle school as being the prime times of bullying, which it might. Some people do say that it is, but it occurs more students, something like that. And so that's, again, where you're going to get a different type, but just as severe of a bullying technique.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Just because I think we think, well, physical bullying is, but what about those? It's the slight, just mental even nuances of bullying and how far that can get carried when it's not noticed and confronted.
When it's not noticed and confronted, it just sticks in the victim's mind, and it can eat them up. Yeah. When I say eat them up, I mean mentally, emotionally, and sometimes it'll become physical. That is part of mental health is physical. A person who has a mental health issue can get sick, and that will be a sign of a mental health issue. And when it goes untreated, when it goes unnoticed, for whatever reason, that can be that can make it a long thing because it's going unnoticed. The only one who notices it, the only one who notices it is the one who was bullied. The bullies may even forget about it, but not the person who was bullied.
Right.
So getting it taken care of, having having teachers around, having, the adults be adults and be there for the children, making sure that things are going, the way they should.
Right.
And again, I don't like it when people say, yeah, it's part of being in school. No, it isn't. It may have been going on for a long time, but that doesn't mean it's how it should be.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. We talked a little bit about, signs to look for as a parent, and a lot of kids will not disclose bullying. Some maybe will, but what do you suggest a parent do if they suspect bullying when their child doesn't disclose that situation?
What I would do is, as the parent, I would look for signs of maybe change. If there is a change in even the slightest change in your child, they don't know how to and this is one thing that I always teach people is that a child may not disclose, or they may not know how to disclose. What I tell them is, when you think about it, they are children.
Right.
Child doesn't
That's a very good point.
Yeah. I mean, a child's a child. They're still beginning life. So how do they, if they get a new situation, how do they bring it up? What do they do? How do they do it?
Yeah.
Things like that. So if the child refuses or doesn't know how to bring it up, the parents, what they can do is they can, again, look for the signs, look for maybe a change in attitude, a change in eating habits, a change in sleeping patterns, a change in maybe lack of interest, not wanting to go to the school when they used to love it. Right. Maybe they change their route. Maybe that instead of going straight to school, they'd rather go an additional mile, which is really weird. You'd think.
Right. Yeah.
They would actually rather go longer to get to school than straight. That's a sign that there's something going on between point A and point B.
Right. I remember you talking when you first were talking about your story, avoidance. Yes. And avoiding those scenarios. So yeah, that's a very good point. And so just to watch, and it's better as a parent to be wrong and to have addressed it than to not. And I'm thinking of these parents who maybe have taken their kids out of school maybe a year ago, sometime this year, and started homeschooling, thinking their child had struggles at school because they had a learning difference. And could it possibly be that your child was bullied? I just really feel led to say that. And to start a conversation with them. What was the classroom like? What were the other kids like? And I mean, I'd rather be wrong than not say it.
Yeah, and this that brings up from a different point of view as a school aide myself.
Mm-hmm.
What I do is I'm always focused on okay, not just how the students I work with are, but what if I hear something else that somebody? What if I notice something in the corner of my eye? I don't know if it's bullying or not, but that doesn't mean I can't mention it to maybe security or maybe their teacher. Oh, by the way, well, I know you know this person more than I do, but this, maybe this is something that needs to be addressed. This is what happened. I noticed that this person was, he was just really belittled, which is, I've seen, this before with this person, but it seemed a little bit more. And sometimes I'll talk to a teacher or security, but then I'll even talk to my principal, who's my boss. I'll say, I saw this, just an FYI. I also mentioned it to the teacher because it seemed a little bit unusual. It seemed out of sorts. So, and that's me just being a bystander.
Right. Well, and that's a good point too. Like in our homeschool co-ops, you don't want, if you're thinking, I'm not exactly sure what I saw, but I'm thinking it's wrong. But to have another person be aware of it, so they're on the lookout too. So it's not just you against that person, but we have multiple eyes now on this behavior. If it's repeated, that it may be an issue to be dealt with. So that's a great idea. I hadn't ever thought of that.
You can tell. Yeah. And if you have. If you're the parent of an elementary school kid who is possibly getting bullied on the playground, tell the teacher to tell the aide. Have the teacher and the aide communicate with each other. Okay, tell the teacher, hey, my son is being bullied on the playground. Can you have the aide just keep track? And make sure he's not getting bullied. If he is, can you do me a favor and ask the aide, how did such and such, how did John Doe do? Was he okay on the playground? Did you see anything? And then maybe just keep your communication up with the teacher. Teacher can keep communication up with the aide, and vice versa. And then the teacher can also keep communication between the parent or guardian. So all of that communication.
Yeah, exactly. Observation, communication. Those are the things that we can use as a team to really help with kids and be advocates for them. Because they're not always going to be able to tell you that what somebody said to them was something that maybe they shouldn't have said or that wasn't right, because they may have been so bullied or have such low self-confidence they might believe what that person said.
Oh, yeah. And you don't want the kid to all of a sudden have the attitude of big deal. Such is life.
Right.
Hey, what else is new? Because then it becomes self-esteem. It really drops the self-esteem.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I want to pop into the question that was emailed to us. And then after I do that, I want to talk about long-term effects, because I know that was something you really wanted to address. And we're kind of rounding out our last 20 minutes. But we had a viewer send in a question, and she asked, any advice for a family who makes a sudden jump into the unknown of homeschooling as a response to unresolved bullying in the school? And I know Dave and I talked a little bit about this, and I don't know if you want to share just a little bit, and then I can address the homeschool part of it.
What I would do is, again, make sure that it's a different situation for the child now being homeschooled. Okay, just keep up that community. Keep on reminding them that you are there. You are their parents. you care about them. You're there for, to listen to them if and when they want to talk. Don't push it on them.
Right.
Don't push the communication on them. Just let them know that you're there if you want to talk. And if they say this, don't ignore it and do not tell them it's not true.
Right.
Always take it seriously.
Yeah. And
always believe them.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing really quick is, they might be out of the school, but you can still get, you can still get the help from the school, itself, or the school district.
Right.
What I would do is I would contact maybe your state superintendent to find out what the rules are for, as far as the district still providing counseling or help.
Yeah. Well, and it's a good issue for the school to know about, and that maybe that you chose to homeschool because the situation was unresolved. And I just want to encourage you, the majority of our parents are not ones that chose homeschool as an option. It was kind of chosen for us. I know that's my story as well. I was sharing that with Dave. And so jumping into it with so many unknowns is probably more typical than you think. But the unresolved bullying, like Dave was talking about, needs to continually be resolved. It's not something that's just because the situation has gone away, it's gone away. There's a lot more that child has to deal with. Their self-confidence has been blown, and it is trauma. And I want to encourage you, next week, my guest we're going to be talking about helping kids heal from trauma. And so that, again, is going to be another way that we're going to address that. And so kind of piggybacking on that, Dave, I know you work a lot with adults, young adults, and independent living skills. And you said that there is a lot of connect between independent living skill issues and bullying and low self-confidence. Can you explain that to us a little bit?
Yeah, when a person is bullied through childhood, through their life, they don't, they're always being told, no, they can't do anything. And eventually it's like it's almost like they become their own bully. They're being told that they can't do something, and therefore they're starting to believe it.
Yeah.
They're starting to believe, no, I can't. I can't live out on my own. I can't make decisions. I can't do finances. I can't do all of these things. So it just, what I do is I teach adult independent living classes, and one of the things that I have to do when I'm teaching these classes, I have to help them break down that barrier of low self-confidence, which oftentimes was because of bullying. It's a barrier, but it can be fixed. It might take a while. It's not hopeless. Nothing is ever hopeless.
Yeah.
But it's very important. It might take time. Little steps at a time. As adults, little steps at a time. So
that's great advice. Yes. And keep revisiting that and encouraging. I think it's that same advice we were talking about earlier. It's, building up that self-awareness and just the value of our kids that they seem to lose in this process, that they're important, that they're an individual, and because of their differences, that's what makes them amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I know you have written a book that is very much online with that, and I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that.
Okay. Well, the two books that I wrote, the first book is A Super Cyclist Saves the Day, and the main character he's always used a wheelchair, and as a child he's a boy just like everybody else. He wants to be a police officer just like his friends, but he's told that no, he can't, and he's laughed at because he uses a wheelchair. But he tells himself he doesn't believe that. He tells himself, I don't care what they say, I'm going to do it. So through hard work and dedication, he goes above and beyond being being a police officer and becomes a superhero. He uses something called a hand cycle, which is a real device. It's like a bicycle. It's a trike. It's 3 wheels, and it's powered.
Okay.
That's what I would use. It's a hand cycle. But he invents a special one that has special powers and has different things. And he wasn't born with any special powers, but through hard work and dedication gains the skills to become a superhero who protects the city, who protects people. And that's the same thing with the second book, which is Super Cyclist Battles Stinkball Man. Just a little bit more humor, but the same idea of overcoming obstacles in life. And one thing that I'm always teaching people is just because somebody says you can't do something doesn't mean it's true.
Yeah.
And that you need to follow your dreams. I mean, that's a quote that I'm always not only teaching, but thinking. Because, even though I work with people on self-confidence, I need to boost my own self-confidence.
I think we all do. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. We're bombarded with things that can cut us down so fast. Yeah.
And the other thing is I have a blog. I write articles. It's shareindependentliving.blogspot.com. And the articles are about various independent living things, and they're independent living things that I've actually either witnessed or actually gone through myself. So it's anything from employment to maybe some budgeting. I have things
great.
about just accessing resources, learning how and when to access resources. Making one thing that I like to tell people is having a list of, general resources. How do you know who to contact and when?
Yeah.
So these are all very basic and a wide range of articles that have to do with a person's independence, starting at a young age.
Yes, I think we've addressed that in a blog a long time ago on our website. Was, you start teaching independent living skills when you start teaching your child how to eat and how to tie their shoe, and it just doesn't stop. It just gets more complicated as you're moving towards transition independent living skills versus just taking care of themselves in your home environment. And so it's a never-ending process as a parent.
Yeah, I mean, when we're in school, when a child's in school, what's the first thing they learn? It's not how to add 2 + 2. It's the communication. It's to follow directions. Okay, as soon as you walk in day 1 of kindergarten, okay, hang up your coat. That's communication. Whether you do it, don't do it, run out the door, that's different types of communication.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think we've addressed that. We were talking about communication skills last week and helping kids with that. So yes. And communication, you can't teach anything if you can't communicate. That's not just in the classroom, but that's in your house. So work on that skill first, because if you're talking and your kids' eyes are glassed over, nothing's going in. So yes, that's a very good point, Dave. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been an incredible conversation. Definitely addressed some things that we haven't on this show before, and I think it's just things that we don't talk about enough, that in a society that is filled with bullying, and we, like you said, we do dismiss it a lot, and we don't take it as seriously as we should, and that does affect the self-confidence not only of our child but of our community in general and our society. And we want to have self-confident kids because we want them to go out and do great things, but they have to be confident to do that. Yeah. And I'm glad that you have turned this into just a mission and basically a ministry, Dave, and helping the kids that you are in the middle of, and the situations and people whose lives you can speak truth into every day. So thank you for letting us be part of that. And I appreciate you coming on our show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And I want to thank our guests. They've been quiet. I know we've just had one YouTube viewer comment a couple times, but we love you, and we love that you keep coming back. Always something new. Do know, like I said earlier, if there's something on the schedule and you're like, oh, I can't make it live, I have a question for, email it to our office at office@spadhomeschool.com. We'd love to do that. And then make sure, like I said, I referenced a couple of our blogs here. We have the #1 special needs homeschooling blog. If you go to spadhomeschool.com and get homeschool help, you'll find the blogs there. You'll find lists of curriculum providers, therapists, consultants that, maybe you're thinking, I don't know how I'm going to plan next year. This is maybe you're going to dive into your first year of homeschooling. Well, we have consultants who are willing to come alongside you and help you to do that. They don't work for me. They are just ones that we have vetted and we highly approve. And so they're listed on our website, so you can kind of find somebody that has perfect fit. Dave, there is one more question for you. Mandy, who's watching on Facebook, wants to know the exact names of your books. And I know I shared the website. They can find them on supercyclist.com. But what are the exact names of your two books again?
The first book is Super Cyclist Saves the Day.
Okay, Super Cyclist Saves the Day.
Yeah, and the second one is Super Cyclist Battles Stinkball Man.
Okay, awesome. Well, that's great. Yeah, and can they find them on Amazon too?
They're on Amazon. Probably the easiest way, it's on my blog and it's on my, if you go onto the website, then it'll give you a direct link to the books. But if not, then you can just go to Amazon, type in, say, Super Cyclist Saves the Day, and
they'll probably both come up anyways. And yeah, Dave Carl. Yeah, exactly. Well, Mandy said thank you. So awesome. Great. Yes. And that's why we love our guests, because they've got great resources for you as well as we do, so that they can help in specific areas. We kind of just broadly hit the whole the whole gamut, and so that's really cool. And so I'm trying to think what else I need to share. Oh, do you need a family vacation and not sure you can have respite and fun, and it may be just too much work? Well, I want to invite you to come to Minnesota. We at Sped Homeschool are having our very first family retreat, and it's going to be August 22nd through the 26th in southern Minnesota. And we will be at the Ironwoods Christian Ranch. There'll be horseback riding. And guess what? If your child's on a wheelchair, we can still get them on a horse. They have a lift. They'll put them on there. We're going to have shooting sports. There's like a giant water slide that goes down this hill. I love doing crazy things, but this might scare me. But we're just going to have fun for a week. Steve Demme from Matthew C. is going to be our retreat pastor. We've got just so much fun in store for you for a whole week. We have just parent night where you can let the kids go with their helpers and you can go out by yourself. We're going to have a chuck wagon dinner. It's just going to be a blast. If you want to find out more about that, you can visit our website at spadhomeschool.com and click on Get Homeschool Help. And at the very top, it'll talk about our family retreat that's coming up in August. We have room for 13 more families. And so we would love for your family to be one of them. You can apply. You don't have to pay right away. And if you have waivers that could be used towards that, you can apply that. You can do fundraising. We will make sure that you get to camp and can spend some time with your family. And we would love to have you. So, and then next week, like I talked about with Dave, we're just going to continue kind of this conversation about how to help kids that have been through trauma. And so Candace Duggar will be joining us, and she has her own story, very similar to the question that one of our viewers sent to us ahead of time, is that her kids were being bullied, and she pulled them out of school to homeschool them, and just the healing from the trauma is what we're going to talk about next week. So this will be a continuation of the same topic and kind of diving into that healing process a little bit more. So thanks all for joining us. Thanks again, Dave. I appreciate your time and your willingness to share your story. It was powerful and you're making a huge difference. So thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Yeah. And thank you all. And we will see you right here next, same time, same place. And so have a great week and God bless. Bye, everybody.
Has fear stolen your peace? I'm Jennifer Slattery, lead host of the Faith Over Fear podcast, helping you fight your fears and grow your faith. Subscribe at lifeaudio.com.